Entrance to the field is from the peripheries, a contemporary field where pixels are inhaled and exhaled, where earth is an artifacted surface, sometimes frozen, sometimes scorched, sometimes lifted or deleted, revealing beneath a scratchboard of calculations, water, oil, tectonics, electromagnetics, flora, fauna, weather patterns, shelters, populations, and sociocultural conventions. Within the field of practice reside all manner of our dependencies, and then there is mutagenesis, the eventual consequence of so-called creation. We arrive just in time for the unraveling of this highly saleable present moment, marking the start of a live communiqué. The field is entered from the peripheries, composed in more or less equal parts motion and stillness. A fixed or concentrated gaze might convey the illusion of passing through, while a cursory glance might yield the sense of a captured totality. Incidentally, and to relieve the specters of our imaginary, we disclose our source. This is Iraq, captured by a colonial field controller before the borders were drawn. It has been digitized and compressed, opened and unfolded. The field has been adapted to fit the inclinations and vocabularies of its audience today. Yet antithetical traces, textured corruptions, unresolved layers, and losses might still be detected. This leaves the diligent labor of our hands and words visible. We are laborers in this multi-directional expanse. We enter the field where a multi-directional expanse has been circumscribed, as if by the pin-like proboscis of a mosquito. What then are the first words we speak to the border's imposition? Delirium, an empty field, a land without people. But abstraction hardens into a bodily condition. We enter the field sideways, moving laterally like crabs along pixelated surfaces, watchful, ambivalent, sensing the rise and fall in temperature with every micro-altitude. Our camouflaged carapace shielding innumerable unnamed esoteric fundaments. We exceed threshold after threshold, of having been born, of having arrived, of having passed through the contradictory contents of geographic space, of our ongoing displacement, of having been variously torn apart. And now we are to remain within the confines of a pixelated line. A plume of smoke appears, erupting along the outskirts of the border demarcation. A war begins again, as if it ever stopped. Here, an effort to sell the plume of smoke. Our individual bodies are ascribed with value, risk, or disposability, a sliding scale of worth. From the body, then, comes the impulse to transcend in a certain direction, outward, that is, out of body. Out of body occurs at the border, for example. It is the desire to become vapor, to leave no trace. But do we ever completely return from out of body? We inhale the pixels. Breath is, after all, the definitive manifestation of an immersive cross-cultural practice. A scorched field marks the peripheries. Have we already burned the border down? Are these the remains of the black snake that Native American water protectors resisted as they were evicted by oil pipeline expansionists? Or are these the ashes from clothing set on fire by Yemeni women signaling danger during the 2011 uprising in Sana'a? Rather, an enormous shadow is cast over the field, vibrating with deafening electrical resonance, menacing the visual, turning a line into a space. Highway of death snaking across the pixelated field. Not shown is empire's marriage ceremony with violence, white phosphorus, a wedding veil festooned with sparks that fasten to flesh and burn to the bone. Such principles are of interest to those of us who seek to characterize the origins of our subtractive contemporary within the present moment. Overtaken by a despair of the minus, we become mutagenic. We enter the field from the peripheries. In Iraq, there is material ambivalence. Are we not all pixels? Are we not all vapor? Are we not all around? Are we not the coolly prohibitive cost of living in Kuwait? Are we not the river current transporting merchants from the mouth of the Gulf to unload and export of dates? Are we not our own incomparably mystical origins in Iran? Are we not the uniquely romanticized women warriors of the Kurdish North? Are we not an endless continuum of burning pixels in Syria? Are we not the specters of death by inhalation? We is our preferred pronoun. We breathe fire and smoke. Transgender, intersex, queer, dancing to Arabic techno in a Berlin nightclub. Refuge for the refugees, salve for the salvagers. Transcendence, multidirectionally, out of body, incendiary, in and of this body. This body, emotional, hardcore, its look appropriated from disaffected Iraqi youth, hair dyed black and ironed flat. Somewhere on our clothes is a skull motif of plastic diamonds that pop off at each refrain, like sparks of white phosphorus on the dance floor. We are beautiful when we're angry. If we dance until morning. In these hours, we become the peripheries. And so it is only through us that the field may be entered. A wild dog barks in the distance. The horizon is tinged pink and yellow. A plastic diamond pops off a skull and into our frame of view. Bleary-eyed, we fall asleep on a bed of depleted uranium shells circa 1991. Absurd cultural practice. Walking along this field, we stumble into the ruins of a toxic burn pit. How did we arrive at this defunct US military base? In a spinning vortex of military residuum, we begin the excavation. We find our bearings inside this architecture of subtraction, where the US military heaped its daily alchemical desire to dissolve the crime of war into thin air using jet fuel. We unearth the poison molecules of an inordinate number of plastic bottles, metal implements, electronic devices, military vehicles, biological and chemical waste, expired munition, animal carcasses, and human carcasses. Confirmed kills, as they were called. We check our sources. Governments prefer to bury such toxicity under pixels, but exact and inexact inventories do surface in unexpected ways. Widely known is that toxic vapors cloaked the atmosphere in enormous black plumes non-stop between the years 2003 and 2010. Operated for profit by Kellogg, Brown, and Root. Nearly 250 crematoria in Iraq and Afghanistan released chemical, biological, and radioactive toxins into the air continuously for something like 8 years. Our nerves give way. We shiver in the desert. The sun radiates without sympathy. There is little nuance in the moment, yet we shiver at the phantasm of convenience. Hundreds of military crematoria burning 24/7 amid a field of disposable civilian enemy populations. How often were those powerful burn pits used to quietly dispose of unconfirmed kills during all those years of violence? Have we no choice but to breathe in the pixels? We dust off the black and white artifacts, mostly fine ash, some larger melted particles, and car engines, and arrange them above ground. We become artifacts in the artifacted field. We dust ourselves off. We become mutagenic. We become specters of the dead. We become the devil. We stare out from behind a plume of smoke. Stepping sideways out from behind the plume of smoke, our theoretical body becomes visible. We dance ceremonially in the pixelated field. Torso begins to unfold from its crouched position. Knees signal the propensity for leaping, while arms and hands, held away from the body, suggest the capacity of flight. Our hands are covered with the pixelated grime of our toils. We are strange, emotional, capable to spite a warped existence. We turn the field into abstraction. We turn it again the other way, and then disappear. Words are read aloud to make sense of a picture. Clouds descend upon us, onto the field, expanding, embracing, caressing, consoling, healing, bringing untold moisture, amassing interplanetary condensation onto a besieged ecology. Cloud vapor is transformed into rushing currents of an immense river, which becomes a vast sea, washing over us, washing over forgotten fields, field after field after field.